Since I was a child, I've always been fascinated by the world of audiovisual translation. Cinema, theater, and entertainment in general have always occupied an important space in my life, which is why I decided to base my project on merging together my greatest passions, entertainment and communication. To watch almost the same thing is therefore my project aiming to track down the most common mistakes that are made in translation and audiovisual adaptation, and at the same time, praise those that for me have been true masterpieces of translation. Too often when adapters ignore a dialect lemma, the target age of the audience, or the mimicry of the actors in the source product, there will probably be confusion in the target product. To help me through this research, I used the sociolinguistic variables as a model that guided me in outlining the essential elements to consider and investigate before moving on to the process of audiovisual adaptation. To watch almost the same thing is not to watch almost the same thing, because the two sentences are characterized by different accents and variations, as well as broccoli are not bell peppers. Though in this degree project, I will demonstrate that sometimes when an audiovisual product poses problems at a linguistic and cultural level, modifications are necessary in order to make the product enjoyable in the target country. In his book, Experiencing in Translation, Humberto Eco explains that translating means trying to say a concept in another language, still knowing you can never say the same thing, but almost the same. Through a process of negotiation, a translator can interpret the source text and create a new message, trying to replicate the same flavor, sense, and reaction of the original text. In audiovisual translation, the dynamics are analogous. For the realization of this graduation project, I analyzed several audiovisual products in order to include as many targets and language variations as possible. In fact, I cited the translation and adaptation of 2 movies, 3 TV series, and 2 animated pictures in Italian, English, and Spanish. The first film analyzed was Inglourious Basterds, Tarantino's masterpiece. The picture presented several linguistic problems, especially because the focal point of the plot is precisely communication and misunderstanding. The film follows some events of the Second World War. In fact, it was shot in the main languages of the conflict: English, French, German, and Italian. Since in Italy the audience was already watching a film dubbed into Italian, the adapters decided to characterize the Italian speech of the characters through diatopic variations, which are the facets linked to the original language and dialect, by transforming it into Sicilian, so as to allure the viewer to a marked accent even in the original language, and balancing so the speech. I then studied the adaptation of Bicycle Thieves, the manifesto film of Italian neorealism by Vittorio De Sica. In 1948, Spain is at the dawn of Franco's cruel military dictatorship. Just as shortly before in Italy, the Spanish people are subjected to a tyrannical propaganda shaping pieces of information and art to their taste. In fact, De Sica's avant-garde manifesto, which highlighted the hunger and poverty of the post-war period, undergoes a severe censorship in the Iberian Peninsula, where scenes of extreme sufferance are transformed into religious sermons, praising the dictatorial regime of Franco. In this case, the variation affecting the adaptation of the film is given by a cultural element that was dangerous and against the morals in the hosting country, and is therefore suppressed. Since the translation of a picture differs from that of a TV series on the basis of distribution, timing, cost, and demand, I've subsequently analyzed the translation of 3 television series: France, Baby, and Suburra. In the iconic American series France, I carefully examined the distribution and translation process that the sitcom underwent on its journey to Italy, both in dealing with the important gap represented by comedy and the rich amount of culturally specific elements. The poor quality of the technologies and the lack of a globalized world made the Italian adaptation of France present residual and misunderstandings. In the Spanish analysis in the degree project, I studied two contemporary television series offered by Netflix Italy, Suburra and Baby. The two products have as a common denominator the geographical origin of the product, Rome. This element deeply shapes the two series both from a linguistic and a cultural point of view. However, it does not present relevant problems in the version dubbed in Castilian. As my research demonstrates, as confirmed by the official translators of the two series, the use of vulgar and offensive words, lowering the register by means of clitics and elisions, variate between registers, and the use of elements of the spoken language can compensate for the lack of an accent or a dialect characterizing a region or a city. The last genre that sparked my curiosity is animated pictures and their adaptations. Since the audience is made up of children, the language must be simple and appropriate, as well as cultural references and jokes must be built on the model of a very young audience. It is also necessary to make the children identify with the characters, trying to avoid in any way a cultural or linguistic distance caused by an inaccurate or evident translation. I analyzed the translation of Inside Out and the Aristocats. In the first case, the Pixar company has shown meticulous attention to the graphic accuracy of the work, modifying and perfectioning the scenes to make them as suitable as possible for the international audience. As I explained in the introduction, in the cartoon about emotions, Inside Out, to arouse the feeling of disgust among American children, broccoli are shown. However, this vegetable is beloved by Japanese children, for whom it was decided to replace with bell peppers, thus balancing the result. The same thing happens when a hockey match is shown, a not very popular sport in Europe, and therefore replaced with a soccer match. The last product I analyzed was the Aristocats in its neutral Spanish version. As a matter of convenience and cost savings, the famous animated film was translated and dubbed in Central America with the goal of creating a film that could include as many variations of Spanish as possible, balancing the Spanish from Spain and the different versions from Central America. In the final result, we can see the characters using syntactic forms and vocabulary from different Spanish-speaking countries, sometimes creating residual, but never causing problems in the film's reception. In conclusion, to watch almost the same thing, it is necessary to understand the meaning hidden behind the elision of those letters and the symbolism of an accent, so as to give back to the target audience a fair view of the history, culture, civilization, and vision of life of a given folk, from whichever way one looks at it.